So I want to talk properly about what I mean when I say the good girl, because I use this phrase a lot, and I know for some women it lands instantly and for others it's more like, okay, but what do you actually mean? So this is me answering it properly. When I talk about the good girl, I'm not talking about being kind, loving, supportive, emotionally intelligent, or just a decent human. That's not the issue. I'm talking about the version of the woman who was shaped by safety, approval and survival. The version of her that learned consciously or unconsciously that it was safer to be easy than honest, safer to be useful, safer to be low maintenance and have needs, safer to be impressive than be vulnerable. This is what I mean by the good girl. And the good girl isn't a personality, and it's an adaptation. It's not random, it makes sense. And I think it's really important because a lot of women have built an identity around those patterns and they just call it who they are. They'll say things like, oh, I'm just a people person, I'm an overthinker, I'm just the reliable one, I'm the strong one, God, I'm just bad at boundaries, just easygoing. And sometimes, sure, parts of that might be true, but a lot of the time, underneath, that's not personality. Protection. It's a body that and a belief system that learned very early what you had to do to stay safe in relationships, in family, in conflicts, in love, in belonging. That is the good girl. She learned how to read the room, she learned how to sense what other people needed, she learned how to be useful, she learned how to not be too much, she learned how to need very little, she learned how to be the calm one, the mature one, the impressive one, the one that was always fine. And the hard part is that often gets rewarded. That's why so many women do not realise that they are living inside a protection identity. Because from the outside, the good girl often looks great. She looks capable, she looks responsible, she looks lovely, she looks thoughtful, she looks dependable, she looks like she has her shit together. Meanwhile, on the inside, she's fucking tired. And that's the bit that I care about. Because the good girl is often carrying a life that can look like functional, but from the outside, but it doesn't feel honest on the inside. She says yes when she means no, she over-explains, she softens what she really thinks, she makes herself easier to deal with, she struggles to rest without guilt, she struggles to ask for help or to ask for more. She's probably really, really self-aware, but still keeps abandoning herself. This is the good girl pattern. And I want to be clear here, this is not me saying you're fake or you're being a doormat or you need to get a backbone. No, that's unhelpful, that's bullshit. The good girl exists for a reason. Women do not become the good girl by accident. They become the good girl because on some level, the system learned that that version of them was safer. Safer to be loved, safer to stay connected, safer to avoid conflict, punishment, rejection, to avoid being a burden, safer to avoid being misunderstood. And when you really understand that, the whole conversation can begin to change. Because now we're not talking about a personality, we're talking about an intelligent adaptation. Maybe you grew up in a home where there was a lot of emotional unpredictability, so you became hyper-aware and over-responsible. Or maybe you learned that being quiet kept you safe, or maybe you learned that being impressive made you worthy of attention, or that conflict meant disconnection. Or maybe you learned that if everyone else was okay, then you could relax. That's the emotional logic of the good girl. And this is why I care so much about not shaming the pattern. Because if you shame the pattern, you miss the fact that it was actually trying to protect you. And if you miss that, you cannot really change it in a deep way. You'll just continue to bully yourself. You'll keep saying, why am I like this? Why can't I just say no? Why do I care so much? Why do I keep doing this? What's wrong with me? And that usually just creates more shame, more pressure and more self-abandonment. What I'm interested in is a different question. Not what's wrong with me, but what system learned that made this make sense? That question changes everything, because once you understand that the good girl is a survival identity, you start to see why she feels so hard to put down. She has probably helped you survive a lot. She may have helped you feel loved, to stay safe, to help you stay chosen, stay included. She may have helped you to keep some sense of control, get through childhood, relationships, work, motherhood, heartbreak, illness, trauma, family systems, all of it. So no, I'm not interested in treating her like an enemy, but I am very interested in helping women see the cost of letting her keep running the show. Because the good girl may have helped you survive, but she is expensive. She costs your truth, she costs your boundaries, your desire, your rest, your self-respect, your clarity, what you receive, your honesty, and your magic. Because when you are always trying to be the right version for everyone else, you are slowly losing contact with who you actually are. You stop asking what you need, what you want, what's true for you. And instead you start asking what keeps the peace, what won't upset people, what's the least inconvenient, what will keep things smooth. And that is a very different way of living. And after a while that creates this very particular kind of exhaustion. Not dramatic, not in like a, sleep and you feel better type of way. It's not obvious. It's something like resentment, numbness, irritation, disconnection, being touched out or over it. That's the cost of the good girl. And I think a lot of women are living there. They are really in this strange in-between where they look fine, but they're not really free. They look strong, but they don't feel safe. They look capable, but they're not connected to themselves. They look like they're handling it, but inside they're deeply tired of being the one who always handles everything. That's why I say the good girl can keep alive looking fine long after it stopped feeling true. And that's why I care about helping women retire her. Not because she's bad, not because she failed, not because there's anything wrong with her, but because she is often not the truest self. She's the adaptive one. And underneath her is some version of you that feels much more you. The part that has needs, limits, desires, anger, joy, instinct, truth, grief, boundaries, magic, the self under survival. This is what I talk about when I say soul self. The soul self is not a polished version. It's not a better version. It's not the version who never gets triggered. It's the truer version of you under conditioning. The one who knows what she wants. The one who can feel when something's off. The one who trusts her intuition. And that's where astrology comes in, because astrology in my world is not just about prediction or personality. I'm not just there to be cute. It's the soul map. It's to help you understand your natural wiring, your needs, your relational patterns, your gifts, your growth edges underneath that protection. So if the psychology helps us understand the protection, astrology helps us understand the person underneath it. That's why both matter, because I'm interested in both sides of the story. When did you start having to survive? And who are you underneath that? And I also want to say, because this matters too, a lot of women already know that they do this. They know that they people please or overthink or over-explain or struggle with boundaries or shrink themselves. But sometimes knowing is not enough. And I think that's where a lot of women get frustrated. It will be, why do I still do this when I know better? Why do I still keep getting into the same patterns? Why do I still panic after setting a boundary? Answer a lot of the time is that your body does not work on insight alone. The body works on safety. So you can know the pattern and you can still keep repeating it if your system believes that honesty, visibility, rest, boundaries, disappointment, desire, or being fully yourself are dangerous. That's why this work is not just about mindset for me. It's not just think differently. It's not just be more confident or choose yourself. Sometimes the body does not feel safe enough to do that yet. What belief is underneath this behaviour? So what I want to know, what did you learn? What did your system learn? What rule is it still living by? What belief is underneath? What feels unsafe about changing it? What pattern is it trying to protect? And who are you underneath that? That's why my work blends subconscious work, belief, EFT, identity work, astrology, because I'm not interested in helping women become a better version of themselves. I'm interested in helping them actually shift the pattern and come back to the version of you underneath survival. She's the one who learned how this space exists for the women who are ready to understand that pattern more deeply, not to shame themselves for it, not to collect more language without change, not to perform healing, but to start seeing clearly where it shows up, why it exists, what's the cost, what's underneath it, and to stop letting it lead everything. Inside the Good Girl Retirement Club, we talk about the good girl pattern, the nervous system, the self-trust, astrology, EFT, subconscious beliefs, and the path back to the self under survival. This is not a space to become better at being good. It's a space to retire the version of who you learned to be. So if you've ever heard me talk about the good girl and thought, okay, but what actually does she mean? I mean the version of you built around safety, approval and survival. And I also want to say one more time, she is not your enemy. She helps you survive, but she doesn't have to run your life anymore. And that's what we're doing here. So from here, I want you to go and start noticing the good girl pattern in your life right now. Where is it running in relationships, work, family, motherhood, money, visibility, rest, boundaries. See you in the next one.